He was sharing a meeting, it was 3-3. He doesn't, he didn't, he didn't want to do that.
Right.
He didn't want to.
But I mean, it was a right.
Right, so technically it's a no vote.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okey doke. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I'm just leaving this on so Dan can hear us, so he feels like he's part of the game.
It's wonderful. Hi, Dan.
What'd you say? I was in Hamilton at one time at this date, and the snowstorm was so bad, they shut down highways, and I sat in a bus station for 8 hours waiting for the storm so we could open up and come home. It was
Good.
Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Planning and Development Committee meeting. Is there anyone with disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, we're going to go straight to the closed session. And then we will come back and start the meeting with the rest of the agenda. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Motion reads that the committee resolve into closed session that the meeting is hereby now closed to the public pursuant to the Municipal Act SO 2001, Chapter 25, Section 2392 for the purpose of considering litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board.
May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Member McIntyre and seconded by Member Minnings. All in favor? Madam Clerk, you ready? Thank you.
The motion reads that closed session adjourned at 9:43 a.m. and the meeting is hereby now reopened to the public.
May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Member Burkett, Member Taylor, all in favor? Thank you. Carried.
Next motion is the confidential planning report P25-018 dated April 16th, 2025, with respect to an update on the Ontario Land Tribunal OLT mediation sum regarding applications for draft plan of subdivision SVT 2022 or 2201 and zoning bylaw amendment Z 2202 and the township's development charges appeal be received, and further that staff and the township solicitor proceed in accordance with option 1 as amended.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Member Brennan, second by Member Burkett, all in. Carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to public meeting Z2411 68 Coldwater Road. I want to welcome Victoria Lemieux. Thank you. From Morgan Planning Consultants. Good morning.
Good morning. Is here- oh.
Thing first. Sorry, I have to. Welcome and good morning. Today there are two public meetings regarding proposed development applications in accordance with the Planning Act. I am pleased to advise that this is being broadcast live on the township's YouTube channel, where a recording of this meeting will be available. Notice of the meeting was sent by first-class mail to all property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the subject property. Signage was also posted on the subject property to provide information about the application. All of this was in conformance with the Planning Act process for a statutory public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment application. The purpose of the meeting is to inform and provide the public and the Planning and Development Committee with an opportunity to ask questions or express views with respect to the proposal. The format of the public meetings will be as follows. The applicant's agent will generally explain the purpose and effect of the application. Second, township staff can provide further information and clarify any statements of the applicant or their agent. Next, the public will be permitted to ask questions and express views on the proposal, and then the public portion of the meeting will be closed. And lastly, members of the committee will be given the opportunity to ask questions for clarification on the proposal and to provide comments. At the conclusion of the meeting, the applicant, their agent, and if required, township staff will be given the opportunity to respond to the questions and comments received. No decision will be made today at the public meeting on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment applications. Following this meeting, the information obtained, including the questions and comments submitted by members of the public and the committee, will assist the township to determine next steps. The township is the approval authority for the proposed zoning bylaw amendments, for which this committee may recommend the bylaws to be considered by council or ask for additional information prior to council's consideration. If in the future, township council decides in favor of the application by adopting recommendations from this committee, members of the public who have provided oral or written submissions but disagree with the decisions may be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, under the Planning Act. Individuals attending the public meeting in person or by YouTube, Zoom, or telephone may email or call the township's planning department to submit contact information to receive notice of the decision on the application. I now call upon the applicant's agent, Victoria Lemieux from Morgan Planning and Development, to please present the information provided within item C-1.1.3.1 of the agenda package and explain the purpose and effect of the application. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Chair, members of committee. Nice to see everybody. For members of the public who may be watching, my name is Victoria Lemieux. I am an associate planner with Morgan Planning and Development. I'm here this morning on behalf of the Wallace family in regards to 68 Coldwater Road. Thank you. So the subject property committee, you may recall, was in front of the committee for consideration and for a public hearing back in December. So you'll be familiar. The property is located in the southwestern portion of the Coldwater community and just west along Coldwater Road. The property has an approximate total lot area of 0.89 hectares and a frontage of 66.9 meters. To reiterate, the portion of the subject lands that are currently vacant, which we'll show in the next slide, were previously subject to a conditional severance approval that the Township's Committee of Adjustment provided back in April of last year. And the application in front of you this morning for discussion is in regards to a condition required from that conditional approval. Next slide, please. There we go. So here we have the aerial. Oh, it did work. Okay, we're good now. Thank you. So here we have that aerial imagery I was speaking of. So as you can see, there is a newly built single family dwelling with attached garage to the northern portion of the property, and the southern portion of the property is the part of the lands that is subject to the application that we're speaking about this morning. I'm too fast here. There we go. So as you can see here, this is the sketch that was part of the conditional approval from the Committee of Adjustment. So the lands in yellow, both shades of yellow, are subject to the proposed rezoning. So essentially the connection between this application that we're speaking about this morning and that approval back in April 2024 was essentially the requirement to rezone those portions of land in order to bring them into conformity with your official plan document. So essentially, condition number 10 of that decision required that these lands be rezoned from the current R1 zone, which is a residential low density zone, to a site-specific downtown commercial exception zone. We have, since the previous meeting in front of this committee, have modified the application slightly, and I will go into further discussion on that in the following slide. But just to reiterate, that is the connection with those proposed severances. And in addition, we are also requesting a reduced side yard setback of 3 meters, a restriction of no parking within the front yard area of the properties, and also a requirement, of course, of site plan control for any future development. So this zoning matrix was provided as part of the application, just reiterating for the committee's understanding. As you can see, the proposed severed lot A and severed lot B that were conditionally approved meet both the lot area and lot frontage requirements of your commercial downtown commercial zone. The area highlighted just reiterates that request regarding a reduced side yard setback of 3 meters from the 6 meters required. So on this slide, I'd like to just go into a little bit more detail, committee, of the changes that we've made in working with your planning department since the last meeting. So the first one I'd like to point out is, as you can see, midway down on the left side of the screen, we have retained the allowance for an accessory dwelling unit in any future development for these properties. And as you'll see in the built form examples that I provide a bit later in the slideshow, we believe that that will further aid towards the overall vision that we believe that council intended to establish for this part of town. Number two, as you can see, we have since eliminated permissions for outdoor display and sales and also outdoor storage areas. We believe by removing those items from the permitted use lists, that's going to further help retain the character of the surrounding area, and also, of course, protect the surrounding community from outdoor storage and noise and more traditional type of commercial nuisances, I'll call them, that are typically established with commercial and more light industrial type of uses. Number three, we've decided to remove permission for place of entertainment. And the reason for that is we believe that by removing that from the permitted use list, it's going to further, again, protect the impact on the surrounding community, especially from a hours of operation perspective. So typically you would think a place of entertainment, it's going to be open in the evenings, it's going to be open on the weekends. By removing that permitted use, we're further trying to protect those surrounding property owners from, of course, those hours of operation concerns when it comes to noise and things of that nature. So the fourth modification that we've made in conjunction with working with staff is in regards to the permitted use around the term restaurant. We've scoped that down further to only allow for that. It's pretty hard to see on your screen, but we've only scoped that down to allow for things such as cafe, ice cream parlor, tea and lunchroom, coffee shop or snack bar. So again, the intent behind that is to minimize the, hours of operation that would be, related to a use of that nature, providing again further protection for the surrounding property owners. And then fifth and final, we have removed the permitted use that's listed as a taxi establishment. Of course, I think that speaks for itself. Further, that's going to minimize both a visual impact to the community and also an operational impact by not permitting these properties to be further developed as a taxi establishment. And then just speaking back to the additional site-specific requests as part of this application, number one being, again, removing the parking permissions within the front yard of these properties. Again, we believe, and I think it'll speak easier in our visual built form examples in the next few slides, but again, to help aid in retaining the character of the downtown core of the Coldwater community by lessening the visual impact of vehicles in the area. And then, of course, as I mentioned, ensuring that these properties are subject to site plan control. So this is the first example that I wanted to demonstrate, and this is actually just up the road along Coldwater Road. So as you can see on the left side of your screen, that dwelling, which appears as a dwelling, but actually there is a home office in that dwelling. I don't know if the office is still operational at this time, but it was previously. And then, of course, on the right side of your screen, as we are all familiar, the delicious Bosco's. I don't think I'll get in trouble for specifically calling out that business name because we've all enjoyed Bosco's from time to time. Again, just reiterating for both committee and members of the public, this is really the intent of where we feel the approach of this application is coming from, to try and establish some non-invasive commercial type of uses in the community, similar to what exists, while still providing opportunity for some accessory residential uses. For example, I do believe that at least in the past, again, I don't know if it's still active, but for example, above Bosco's, I believe there used to be a residential unit up there. There might still be, but again, I can't speak to current. So another example, this is actually just moving to the other side of Coldwater Road, a beautiful corner lot that you can see here. Again, beautiful single family dwelling type of built form, but there's actually a salon that was established in this property. Again, I think it's safe to say if that small yard sign was not there, you wouldn't know that this dwelling actually had a salon establishment inside. And then a couple more relatively local examples. This one is from a chiropractor office in Aurelia. And as you can see here, a little bit different of a style of a single family dwelling. But as you can see, again, I think if one was to not recognize the chiropractic office signage at the front of the building, most traveling public would assume that this is a single family residence. So this is another beautiful example from the city of Aurelia, just off of Coldwater Road. This is the Stride Clinic. Again, very nondescript signage that you can see in the bottom right of your screen. Again, a built form that is typical of more of a single family residence, but provides some commercial opportunity for the local community. And then just a couple of more examples. This is a dentist office in the city of Aurelia on Mary Street. This one, again, is interesting where there's only a very small signage to the right of the stairs there. And actually all of the parking for this facility is also to the back of the house, which is similar in what we're trying to achieve through this application. By not permitting parking in the front, you're going to maintain that typical front yard aesthetic of a single family residence. And then just another example, this is a denture clinic similar to the last dentist office, again, in a similar type of built form. Here is a accountant office. This is actually just across the street from City Hall in the city of Aurelia. This example to me, committee provides probably the best example of the built form intention for these lots and likely a similar type of size that would be permitted on this lot. Number two, again, by restricting parking in the front yard, we maintain that beautiful front yard feature area. And then similarly, it would have a lane aisle to the back of the building for parking. So again, taking away the focus on vehicles, which we think will help maintain the aesthetic of the character of Coldwater Road. And then I know, I unfortunately I wasn't at the last meeting, but I do recall and in conversations with staff that Fenland Falls came up as an example of some similar kind of live work style units that have been established there. So this is on Francis Street in Fenland Falls. So on the left side of your screen, that house actually also provides a cafe establishment on the main floor. And then on the right side of your screen, this actually provides a law office. And again, I think, for example, for me, someone who's not from Fenland Falls, walking down that street, if those small signs weren't there, you wouldn't even recognize that these were commercial uses. And we truly believe that this is the type of intention that both township staff and their consultant, and of course council through your official plan review process was envisioning for the extension of Coldwater Road. And then just another example from that same street, Fenland Falls. On the left side, you have an accounting office, and on the right side, there is a home office in there. We don't know exactly what the business establishment is, but we do know that there's an active office in that dwelling. And then finally, this is a hairdressing establishment on that same street in Fenland Falls. And this one's actually a little more interesting, where we actually believe in reviewing a little bit more into this property, there's actual multiple units in this property. So there's a salon on the main floor, and we do believe there may be up to 3 units in the back and to the top of the building. So again, we believe this is very similar to what the township is hoping to achieve on these properties. So to reiterate just to the committee, and I'm sure you've had time to review the agenda package, our office did provide a thorough planning justification report that provided an overview of all the applicable policies as we typically do, including both provincial, county, and township policy. And just to reiterate, I did want to address, we did have a number of public comments that came in. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to speak to those and provide some responses. So we first got a letter from a couple that lives on Gill Street. So Gill Street is just that perpendicular street to the subject property. It appears from their letter that their primary concern was more related to noise impact. For example, they spoke to hammering, grinding, those types of activities. And I do believe that our revised application now even further provides protection for the neighboring property owners. Like I mentioned, there's no, contractor yards or any type of more light industrial type of permissions that would be allowed here. So we do feel that the revised application has likely addressed that opposition. The second letter that we received was from members of the Riverwalk community, and their comments were, again, more so related around the hope to retain this as a residential property. But I believe that, again, unfortunately, the direction for Coldwater Road and this essentially new commercial spine that the township is intending to implement, unfortunately doesn't allow this property moving forward to be retained simply as a residential property. So we do believe that we are following the intent of the policies there. And the third most recent comments, I believe they came in yesterday, was from the property owners just across the street on the corner of Gill and Coldwater. And it's a family, and they provided concerns, understandably, around potential traffic concerns. And my response around that is just to reiterate, especially to that family, that this application in front of the committee is not the final check in the check and balance process that township staff have the ability to continue with here. As I mentioned, these properties, before any construction takes place, would have to go through site plan control. Through that process, if township staff felt it was appropriate, they can ask for an entrance study, a traffic study, whatever else they felt is reasonable based on whatever the built form and use would be at that time. So we do feel that, I have nothing but confidence in your township's planning department to, keep that public comment in mind and make sure that through the site plan control process that they protect that family and the surrounding community's interests around traffic. So that being said, thank you very much for your time. Again, we believe that these modifications to the application hopefully will provide some comfort to committee as well as the members of the public. And I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and especially for answering the residents' concerns. I will now, does the township's planner, Brad Oster, have anything further to add to the materials and information presented by the applicant?
Thank you, Chair. I will be more brief as Ms. Lemieux has covered the purpose and effect of the application well. As she mentioned, this is a condition of a prior provisional approved consent application B091023 for the creation of 2 lots from 68 Coldwater Road. As Ms. Lemieux had mentioned, this application was previously deferred at the December 2024 Planning and Development Committee and has allowed the application to be modified and brought back to committee as presented today. There were those concerns raised at the December 2024 public meeting related to land use compatibility. And since that time, staff have worked with the applicant's agent regarding those issues and have to address those concerns. And that has resulted in this modified application, which has revised those permitted uses, intending to allow more complementary commercial uses to mitigate those conflicts with the existing residential uses in this transitional area. As Ms. Lemieux noted, there are some additional site-specific provisions here to ensure appropriate site design, such as prohibiting that required parking within the front yard and moving it to the rear behind any proposed future building or structure, as well as requiring conformity with the official plan design guidelines through any future site plan control application to deal with matters such as siting, scale, and massing. I will just take the opportunity here to share my screen, just as I think it will be beneficial for council to get a little bit of a visual related to the official plan. So I'm hoping that there it is. So the Coldwater Road corridor from Highway 12 through to Sturgeon Bay Road and Gray Street has long been established as a commercial and or an employment area of the township. So that area is recognized in the red color on your screen. So you can see that extending from Highway 12 in the south end of the settlement area up to Sturgeon Bay Road and Gray Street, and then across the north side of Sturgeon Bay Road. So that area was recognized as a settlement employment area in the township's 2005 official plan. And that was carried forward in the new official plan that was adopted by council in 2024 and just recently approved by the County of Simcoe. These areas are crucial to the development of complete communities by providing places for people to live, work, and play all in the same area. Development controls, such as the required site plan control agreement, prior to any site alteration or development occurring on these lands, will ensure the compatibility and the integration of the uses, again, in this transitional area as it further develops. Also, through that site plan control process, I would just point out that the matters related to the flood proofing area and the environmental matters that were, dealt with more so through the consent process, those would be implemented on site to make sure that those protections and any mitigation measures are addressed. So for those reasons, township staff have no objections to the planning justification as presented by the applicant's consultant and are recommending that the amending zoning bylaw amendment be presented to council at the next available meeting. Thank you. And if there's any questions, more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oster. Are there any persons present in person, on Zoom, or the telephone who have either questions or comments on the application will now be invited to speak? Township staff will call upon each registered participant. For those in remote attendance, unmute yourself when called upon. Turn on your camera if you wish. All will be required to give your full name and address for the minutes. Please note that your comments will also be recorded and live streamed to the township's YouTube channel and will remain online. The township does not have the ability to edit the live stream to remove any personal information provided in the course submitting comments or questions. Brad, are there any members of the public registered to speak?
Thank you, Chair. We did have somebody who had requested the Zoom information, but I'm not sure if they are in attendance. Maybe. give them a chance here to unmute, but if not.
Madam Clerk, do we have one?
We have one. I've asked them twice to unmute and join us, so
Thank you very
we
much.
can always come back to them if they, if there's someone in the audience. that wishes to speak.
If there are any members of the public who did not get called and would like to speak, please unmute yourself now, or those in person, please approach the microphone and give your name and address for the minutes. Okay, if at any time you can get online, just let us know. Thank you. Could the township's planner please summarize any additional correspondence that has been submitted on this application and provide any further information?
Thank you, Chair. As Ms. Lemieux had noted, there was some additional correspondence received from Kevin and Stacey Campbell at 67 Coldwater Road. They did write to formally state their opposition to the proposed addition of another entrance to the intersection located near their property. Their primary concerns stemmed from the inevitable increase in traffic volumes that this new entrance would generate. They stated that the increase will lead to a significant rise in traffic noise, disrupting the peace and tranquility of their residential area. Beyond the noise pollution, they were deeply worried about the potential for increased dangers to pedestrians, including their young children, the grandchildren of the neighborhood, and seniors, as well as to motorists who will face more congestion and a complex intersection. Gill Street attaches to Coldwater Road at a significant angle and is quite offset from where this entrance will be located. The Kevin and Stacey Campbell urged committee to reconsider this development in light of these safety concerns and quality of life implications.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oster. Does the applicant's agent wish to provide any further information on the application or in response to the correspondence?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do the members of the committee have any comments? Member Burkett. I
Thank
can't
you,
see
Sue.
him, Jansen.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Brad, does this add to our, if they're rezoned commercial, add to our employment land deficit? I'm just joking. I think it does. I don't know.
Through the chair to Member Burkett, these lands are already counted as part of our existing employment lands as they are already designated settlement employment.
Sorry,
Ms.
just through the chair to follow up on that, just to clarify our official plan, our old official plan, because the new official plan has a non-decision on settlement on all the employment lands. This would be a commercial property, so it would not count towards employment numbers as the province has specifically identified certain employment uses, being factories, warehousing, research and development, etc. So it's a very specific classification of employment lands that we will now need to look at in terms of our deficit and in terms of our current existing inventory. So just wanted to clarify that this would be a commercial property. It would not meet the new provincial definition of employment lands.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mandeville. Member Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair to Victoria and or our planning staff. So parking is a big concern everywhere, especially in Coldwater. So you're saying no parking in the front lot. So if you went to your overhead showing the two created lots, are you planning parking at the back near the river? I'm just saying, how do you determine how much parking is required? Because we don't really want to see it on Coldwater Road.
Through you, Chair, to Member Taylor, thanks for your question. So, and of course, that is a great concern for any development, especially in, like you said, a historical community like Coldwater, where the existing, right of ways do not necessarily provide overflow parking. So exactly, we anticipate, again, through the way that we've set up this zoning bylaw amendment, is any potential new owner, therefore new developer, would be required to provide parking in the rear. In order to, unfortunately, I can't speak exactly to how many parking spaces at this time, because of course someone might come in and they may request an office or they may request a cafe, and both of those uses have different parking requirements associated with them. So that would be, of course, the job of staff at that time to make sure that any proposed development through that site plan control will meet your parking standard requirements. And if they didn't, that would have to go through an entirely new process. So we anticipate that there is more than enough room. These are very deep lots, as you can see on the aerial imagery, that they should be able to accommodate appropriate parking for the uses.
And just one final question through to staff. And so what studies will we be requesting here? Like a traffic study? What else goes with the couple of letters that have come in as based on traffic? So what studies in addition to are we doing a traffic study, and what else are we going to do?
Ms. Mandel?
Through the chair, I just wanted to comment on Member Taylor's first question and then also the second question. So the first comments about the number of parking spaces, that was a great answer Ms. Lemieux gave. I'm not going to disagree with that. However, I just want to point out to council that when businesses change, sometimes township staff are not notified, and that creates a parking deficit. So that is a problem for us in Coldwater, because something like a retail store requires less parking under our bylaw as compared to a restaurant. So that is something we have to look at during that process. So I just wanted to give council a heads up on that, because I don't think people think about that. You know, if something's going from a retail store to a restaurant, that does create additional parking demand, and therefore that restaurant may not actually be able to go into that space. Just for example, you know, a hair salon would have a different parking requirement, or it may have a different parking requirement than a retail store or than a restaurant. And we don't always see building permits, even though there's typically plumbing being installed. We don't always see building permits for those change in uses coming through. So just as a heads up to council, that is a problem we experience, especially within downtown Coldwater and to a lesser extent within Washago. And we know there are parking issues there. So that is something compounding the issue. The good news is that when there's a newer business that has a site plan agreement, we have a little bit more control. Also, the owners are bound by a legal agreement on title that would facilitate, you know, the requirement to have that parking and their services. So when it comes time to site plan, as council may remember, especially members who have been on a long time, site plan agreements used to come to council for approval. And then the provincial government took that away from council and specifically delegated it to staff. So all site plan agreements have to be approved now. At a staff level, it's not possible to bring them up to council. That's something right in the Planning Act now. So depending on the site plan agreement, depending on the proposal, we ask for various things. What is common is an entrance analysis. What is also common sometimes is a traffic brief. So it's not going to be a full traffic study, but they're going to have to indicate to us the amount of volume they anticipate for the business. And specifically, if the type of business is something where all of the vehicles would come at one time, or if they'd be spread out throughout the day. So if you think about a traditional office, even like the one we're sitting in right now, there's a lot of traffic that comes in here, say between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. And then, you know, there's very little traffic all day until the end of the day. So that's the kind of thing that would be analyzed in a traffic brief. If it's more of a retail store that's just open all day, then it's a slower influx of traffic just all day versus at certain peak times. So that's the kind of thing we can look at during site plan control. During the site plan agreement. We would also look at things like drainage. So how are you dealing with your stormwater? The back of this property, some people are commenting that it's towards the river. The property line doesn't actually go to the river. There's 100 feet between the back property line and the river, but that's still going to have to show to us how they're going to deal with that stormwater, especially, you know, they're going to have to provide a parking lot. And as Ms. Lemieux said, the number of spots is going to depend on the use, and that would be looked at through the site plan. But they'll have to figure out how they're dealing with that stormwater, if it's a catch basin within the lot, if there's a stormwater pond, if they're going to have swales, all of that kind of stuff. Those are all technical site design things we look at. Same, you know, how big's the driveway going to be? Where's the driveway going to be located? All, you know, what are the sight lines when you're coming in and out of the driveway? Those are all the technical things that our staff and our engineer, our consulting engineers look at during the site plan process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Manville. Member Jansen.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I'm just wondering, in terms of the size of the two lots, if I was looking at page number 5 of the Morgan Planning and Development slide, There's a lot that's right beside where the residential area of this larger lot sits. Would it be approximately that same size?
Through your chair to member Jansen, sorry, are you speaking to the lot to the north of the property, like to the top of the page of that slide?
Yeah, it would be the top of the page. There's a home on it. It looks like it's kind of pushed over to the side. It would allow for a driveway to go beside it or around it to the back, I guess.
Yeah, I believe, obviously I can't speak specifically to exact measurements, but we anticipate that it would be similar in nature to that. And we did look at lot fabric, going up along Coldwater Road, and we do feel that the proposed, and this was part of the consent justification at the Committee of Adjustment, was the proposed lot fabric is relatively in keeping with existing lots, towards the north and the south.
Okay, thank you. And I would also just like to comment on the changes to the downtown commercial exception. So I do appreciate that we've taken off some of these items when I looked over the community's concerns. The amount of traffic coming and going, I guess. So in that sense, I'm just wondering, like, how feasible would it be to have a convenience store on this lot, or a grocery store? Those would be kind of places where you'd have people coming and going all the time, compared to a photography studio or a personal service establishment, kind of like the beauty salon across the street.
Through you, Chair, that's a great question, and we spoke with staff quite in detail when we were going through this list and considering, something like a grocery store and those types of uses. I think my first answer to that would be, when you consider, for example, the floor plate of a traditional grocery store, such as the Foodland across the street, or, a similar smaller town community like a Value Mart, these lots definitely do not provide the type of lot area that a business like that would require for them to move in. We did decide to maintain a grocery store permission, simply because, for example, a member of the community might want to establish a small health food store. We're seeing a lot of those types of smaller, family run type of businesses pop up in a lot of communities. So something like that, where it would be kind of on the ground floor of a building. I don't think it would see a traditional level of grocery store traffic. That type of business, someone could walk to it from elsewhere in Coldwater. We wanted to maintain the ability for someone to establish that type of use for a grocery store, and maybe staff can provide a bit more speak to that in our conversations. But no, we don't anticipate, Member Jansen, that we would see the type of development that I think the general public would anticipate with a grocery store. I don't think spatially it just would not be feasible on these lots.
Okay, and then supplemental, just about feasibility on the lot, and I kind of agree, although the health food store might be a great example. For the hotel or motel, and I'm looking at that lot size and comparing it to that other home that's just north of the property, would we be talking about just a small bed and breakfast? Because I don't think it would fit an actual hotel. A motel is kind of a different layout and size. And those might be a little more disruptive to the community, as opposed to again, a photography studio or a beauty salon or something. So I'm just wondering why they would be left on the list. And then again, I would say it would be beneficial to our community to have a hotel and motel. I'm just not too sure if this site would be feasible to accommodate that.
Through you, Chair. Absolutely. And we agree that definitely that would be needed in the community. I anticipate, and again, we had these conversations with staff, but a hotel motel type of use, in this type of commercial zone, a bed and breakfast type of establishment is typically found more in zoning permissions for a residential use or a shoreline residential use, or, a tourist commercial type of use. So I think that would likely be the intent here, but because it's a downtown commercial zone, a bed and breakfast is not typically a listed use. So I think that would allow, by maintaining the hotel and motel, we or staff would be able to capture more of a bed and breakfast, more of a properly established 2 or 3 unit type of temporary accommodation use under the umbrella of hotel and motel. Maybe I'll push that over to staff just to make sure I'm speaking correctly on that. But that was our anticipation. Because again, like I said, I think a typical hotel establishment, they would not have the spatial capacity on these lots. I would agree with that comment.
Mr. Oster?
Through the chair, yeah, so something like a boutique hotel, something like that, you know, smaller number of units or rooms available for the public moving through the community, you know, spending a night or two, something like that. Really, it comes down to the developer as well. You know, if somebody is looking at these lands, they have to make sure that the lands are capable of accommodating the use that they want to do. There's a variety of different uses, although scope to ensure that land use compatibility component, but it would still be the onus on a developer to ensure that the lands are suitable and can accommodate the uses that they're looking to do.
Thank you. Member Jansen, is that okay?
Yeah, I appreciate those responses. Thank you very much.
Member Minnings?
I thank you through the chair. Thank you for your presentation. I do have a question. Do you have a street view photograph of 68 Coldwater Road, similar to all the street views that you showed us of those other commercial homes?
Through your chair to member Minnings, do you mean like a potential development type of
No,
screenshot or just
current existing, just like what you showed us, standing on the opposite side of the street, taking a photograph. Do you have that?
So I don't have that in my presentation, but staff might be able to pull up a street view for us to look at.
You did have one with the.
Yeah, that's
Your microphone.
There's also a bookkeeper along there too, just
Mhm.
before that property,
yeah, just to
right
the
after
north of that.
Wallace.
Through the chair, I don't believe that the street view is current. It's from before it was developed. There is a house there now on the one retained land. Typically staff do a site visits. We probably somewhere have a site, but unfortunately we weren't prepared for that to bring that up.
Thank you. No, and I'm asking Ms. Lemieux because you brought us all kinds of other street views and examples from other communities and also from Coldwater. So I was looking forward to seeing this current lot. So as you were speaking, they were all the homes / commercial use homes. They all appear to be beautiful century homes, established, mature trees, etc. So when I am familiar with 68 Coldwater Road. That's why I asked you if you had something, because I don't know if everybody is necessarily that's watching. So the vision that you showed us of what it could be doesn't exist as far as establishing a business on that 68 Coldwater Road, because there isn't a century home now.
Through your chair, yes, that is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if council, and I understand per staff, Ms. Mandeville, if I got it right, you said that council no longer has input or approval on or a role on site plan improvements, but we do have control over rezoning properties, which is why it's here today. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, I'm seeing you nod. So thank you. So then further to Councillor Jansen's concerns about use, once this property is zoned commercial, it's commercial. And whether or not there's a beautiful century home built on it that looks like all the other pretty houses you showed us, or whether there's a brick building that goes up, or a convenience store, or a mall, or a motel that runs the length of the building. Once the designation is granted by council, then there's no longer a role for council, and it is what it is. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, I appreciate that comment, and yes, my response to that would be, and again, maybe I'll ask staff to chime in after, but a big part of our change to this application to require, because technically any commercial property in the municipality, staff can implement site plan control. We've revised the application to ensure specifically in the zoning amendment that they will be required to. And a big push from that comes from, I anticipate, again, I can't speak for staff, but The new official plan provides more policy direction around architectural guidelines for the Coldwater community. I don't know if it's specifically just Coldwater or the whole township, but I know the intent behind that is exactly where you're coming from, where I know council and members of the public want to see that type of style and architectural control be maintained. And by ensuring site plan control, staff would have to make sure that any new developer would have to adhere to that. Once those guidelines are in place, I believe they're not in place yet, but they are beginning to be worked on. Again, I'll defer to staff, but that was where we're coming from to try and maintain that. Again, like you said, it will never be century homes until a century from now. But we hope to see that vision come to life once.
Oh, okay, so thank you very much for that explanation. And just based on some of the language, because we don't have an approved official plan for that particular consideration, and words like the intent is, and we would, endeavor to, based on that, I wouldn't be able to support a rezoning to commercial at this time because of the resident concerns and some of the concerns that the councillor expressed too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Member Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair, just a follow up to what Member Jansen was talking about. Looking at the permitted uses there, like a hotel and motel, I can't see why have it on there when it's not practical. The lots are too small, but why even have that?
Through you, Chair. I think we were trying to, work together with staff to scope down the permitted use list as much as we could without potentially hindering future development opportunity. For example, someone who may want to come in and create some sort of boutique hotel. I think that was a great example that Brad provided. So we were trying to, find a balance between scoping the uses down at this stage, which is still quite preliminary before a developer is actually, in the door on the property, but still trying to mitigate, again, the more nuisance-based uses. So at this stage, we intended to keep hotel and motel. But I think if committee before this application comes back wants staff to review that further, we'd be happy to continue to speak with staff on that matter.
Ms. Mandeville.
Through the chair, just thought I'd weigh in here. I've certainly been accused over the last 12 years of hindering economic development. And we really tried not to do that in this case. We have a new economic development person. She's really good at telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing for economic development. So I think we were just trying to scope the list to things that we felt wouldn't be as intrusive. So obviously those outdoor storage, a taxi stand, things that, would be operating in the evening, even restricting the type of restaurant that could go there so it wouldn't be open at dinner time, things like that. That's what we were really focused on while trying to keep the permitted uses broad enough that should have both boutique hotel or perhaps a spa that wants to offer overnight accommodation, that would be considered a hotel, right? So we wanted to try and keep those uses in mind. It is a beautiful property. It's a beautiful town, as we all know. So I think we were trying just to leave it as open as possible while removing things that we thought would be intrusive to those adjacent residential properties.
Thank you, Ms. Mandeville. Member Jansen.
Thank you. And through the chair, I think, some of those bigger items, grocery store, hotel, motel, may have worked if it was only severed into one extra lot rather than the two. I guess, in Member Minning's concern about, once we approve this, we've got no control after. I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with that either. I do agree that we need some extra employment lands, but I know it's not called employment lands here. I am concerned with the amount of traffic that would be, coming in and out of this place with some of these items. Again, the convenience store, you could have people coming and going all day long. We've got other convenience stores in the area. I guess my main concern is, maybe I share it with Member Minnings, is what is this place going to look like? And can it be restricted to look like a home so that it fits in with the character of the neighborhood and it does not look like, you know, just some random business or brick square building?
Thank you. I just want to point out that at our last public meeting we had on this property, we did speak to staff about that, and that is why they looked into it, that we wouldn't have the flat, square, modern looking buildings, that the whole requirement would be that it would fit in with the neighborhood. Member Burkett.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Katie. You stole my thunder. So we now have an economic development officer. We know that the Coldwater Road is a busy road. We have businesses and homes all along Coldwater Road. We have a huge development that's happening right in behind Foodland. I do share your concerns, but because it is a busy road and we're trying to promote economic development, we have no idea what type of business may come there. We want to welcome those businesses. We want to welcome businesses that are going to provide employment. Is it going to be something, and they put restrictions already on the businesses that can be there, and there's going to be a site plan control, and staff will look at whatever may or may not come. But by rezoning it commercial, we have no idea who is going to invest in our community. And that's what we're looking for. We want to keep the small town flavor, but again, it's 2 lots. And I have no idea who may or may not invest in it. I want it to move forward. I want to see it rezoned commercial. I want to see what comes to our community. I think it'll be a bonus.
Okay, I just have a couple things about the traffic. That will now be a community safety zone. So that will slow that down immensely. The other one is if you go out past these lots, past Foodland, there are commercial lots all the way along there. Being on the BIA, we have various businesses who keep saying, we really want to invest in Coldwater. We want to put a store in Coldwater, but there's no place to put it. I think that this is the best place to put it because that is a main arterial road that goes in. It's not going to affect any neighborhoods. So you haven't got people going up and down the street. It's already on a main road, which will have an ASE. The built form intention, we've already discussed with that. I think when you're looking at site plan, I'd like to see tree removal check just to give us some nice foliage maybe at the front. My only concern with the uses is the outdoor recreational use. I have a concern of motors running, people looking after snowmobiles, doing those types of things. So I would like to look at that one because I think that's a noise and a fume and a concern. The other ones is the hours of delivery. I mean, we did hear that about the beep beep, which is infuriating. And other than that, I am very for this because of the fact that we are looking for development. And this seems to be a really nice way to keep it as a quaint, good development. And I have full trust in staff on this, that they will ensure that that will happen. And I just need a question to Katie or to Andrea about the built form, like those logistics that we had asked to be put in and where are they at?
Through to the chair's question or comments question, I guess, at the end there. The built form is very tricky. So the changes the province made to the site plan process, I think it was the same time they took it away from council, but it could have been another time. There's been so many bills, it's hard to keep track. But one of those things they changed is that we don't have as much control over built form and architectural design as we once did. There are architectural design guidelines in our new OP, which is adopted. It is in effect. Our new OP is in effect. So there are those design guidelines in there, but they're just that. They can only be guidelines. So as much as we would like to say we're going to protect what's built there, it's very difficult for us to do that. You know, we obviously hope that whoever comes to this town will want to match that character and will want to build something that looks good. We can enforce landscaping. We can ask for landscaping. We will ask for landscaping as part of that site plan process. We will try to utilize those design guidelines in our new OP, but we unfortunately don't have full control over that.
I would like to remind council, though, that this property in our OP is slated to become commercial. So although there may be some issues and perhaps we need to scope the list a little bit further, it sounds like the applicant's planner would be open to that as well. Should council choose not to approve this application, I suspect that that will not go very well, given that we have a brand new official plan that still says this property should be commercial.
And also now we have the opportunity to put limits and make this tight so that when someone does come in, they have to follow these groups. Katie, is there a way that we could have pictures of newer buildings that really look like older buildings just to show someone? I know it sounds silly. You know where I'm going with this, sort of say, look, this is what we'd like to see.
Through the chair, I don't think we can do that. Certainly, we tried to talk about character and talk about design things in our new OP. I know historically other communities have done downtown plans or they've done secondary plans that have images and, you know, that are really glossy to look at. I just don't think in today's planning framework that there's any teeth to those anymore, unfortunately.
Anyway, it's just a suggestion. So other than the rec use, I am fully for it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm certainly in favor of it going to commercial, but it's the permitted uses I have a question with. I think 3 have come up: hotel, motel, and outdoor recreation. Whether instead of voting no for the whole thing, can we agree with something at committee level here so that we can agree on what's permitted here, and rather than throwing it out the window, whether a straw poll each way, you're chairing it, and just we might be able to save the. We want the motion to go through as commercial, but some of us have questions on the permitted uses there.
Okay. Through the chair to see, Madam CEO, is that something we can do then and just decide? Or
Yeah, it's not before committee to vote on right now. It's a public meeting, so I would suggest that both the applicant's planner and our planner have heard what council has said loud and clear, and we'll work together to bring you something that more closely matches your expectations.
thank you very much. I thought that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just I'm not sure if you know if there's a majority for or against.
Like, no offense, I've lived there my whole life, and I've heard of different things, and we've had like, I mean, even that Greenwood Landing, when it went in, it was like, oh my goodness, there'll be no parking spots, a food land and everything. And now people I love it. They want more townhouses because it's a perfect spot to move from a big house to that house. You know, and with people working from home, maybe there are some opportunities for someone to stay home and raise a family and have a little shop out front. I mean, those are things that we're trying to promote in the community now, small businesses. Go ahead, remember, Brendan?
Yeah. Oh, I heard what the CAO said, and she says you've been heard. Well, you haven't heard from me. And so now I like the application the way it is. I think we're being overly intrusive here with this. Man, if we treated the bigger developers like we're treating this poor application, my God, we wouldn't get anywhere in life. So that's where I'm.
If there are no further comments, I declare the public information meeting on this proposal closed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Motion is that planning report number P25-016 dated April 16th, 2025. With respect to zoning bylaw amendment application file number Z2411 for the subject lands located at 68 Coldwater Road be received. And further that pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act, no further public notice, public meeting be required with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment. And further that the draft zoning bylaw amendment included as attachment 4 staff report P2516 be presented to council for consideration at the next available meeting, subject to comments received prior to council's consideration of the zoning bylaw amendment, including additional submissions from the planning committee, members of the public, circulated agencies, and township departments.
And I'd just like to bring forward one thing, sorry, which I meant to, from the one gentleman's concerns, and he did say on it, if there were restrictions on noise and fumes, that he would be fine, as long as on that site plan control, we had that in mind. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councilor Member Minning, seconded by Member Taylor. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Yes, we will have a Welcome back. Public meeting for 35997 Severn River zoning bylaw amendment application. I now call on the applicant's agent, Jonathan Pauk for Morgan Planning and Development to please present the information provided within item C231 of the agenda package and explain the purpose and effect of the application. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jonathan Pauk, Senior Planner at Morgan Planning and Development, here on behalf of our client with respect to 35997 Severn River. This image on the slide just shows the location of the subject property fronting onto the Severn River, generally located between Lock 43 and Severn Falls. On the north side of the river would be the town of Gravenhurst, and on the south side, township of Severn. Generally located, as mentioned, between Severn Falls and Lock 43 and is downstream from the Swift Rapids Lock. Has a lot area currently of about 7.5 hectares and approximately 208 meters of frontage along the Severn River. Currently undeveloped with a mixture of forested lands and wetland areas. There is an existing dwelling on the property, which is dilapidated and is not usable condition. Access to the property is along Sherwood Forest Lane, which is a newly constructed private road, and that road connects to White Pines Road. There we go. So this is just an air. Oh. This is found the sweet spot. Okay. This is an aerial image of the subject property. As you can see, the newly constructed Sherwood Forest Lane traversing through the property. In the middle of the property, near the shoreline, you can see the small developed area, which is the location of the existing dwelling. Is serviced or was serviced by an existing septic and well. This is just excerpts. On the right-hand side is the township's old official plan, as this application was deemed complete under the previous official plan. So this is just demonstrated that it is designated shoreline and does have areas of environmental protection shown in the blue areas. On the left-hand side, the subject property is zoned shoreline residential 3, rural, as well as environmental protection. And those areas are shown on the left side of the screen. The zoning bylaw amendment that's before committee this morning for discussion is a zoning bylaw amendment that was included as a condition of provisional approved consent application for the subject property. I do have a lot configuration sketch on the next slide for your benefit. The consent applications seek to generally sever the property in half and to create a new shoreline residential lot. The zoning bylaw amendment has a few items associated with it. Firstly, it's to recognize the retained lot, so the northern lot, and the lot size of the rural area that's associated with that. And the minimum lot area requirement is 10 hectares in the rural zone. That portion would be rezoned to recognize the lot area of 4.7 hectares. On the severed lot, so the southern lot, again, it's to recognize the rural portion of the lot and to permit a lesser lot area than what's required. So to permit 2.7 hectares, whereas 10 hectares is required. Thirdly, it's to apply the zoning amendments to apply a holding provision on the portion of the property that's zoned shoreline residential 3. This will be a lot clearer in my next slide, just to show you the portions that are to be rezoned. The holding provision is to ensure that site plan control is required before any building or development on the southern lot. And the intent of site plan control in this circumstance is to make sure the findings and mitigation measures that were identified through the environmental impact study that were submitted through the consent application are implemented on site. I can speak to those briefly, but those mitigation measures would include things such as a 30-meter buffer area from the shoreline, some silt fencing around the developed area or developable area, erosion and sediment control measures, some dock sizing and timing construction, as well as vegetation clearing timelines. So this is the image of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment schedule. Again, the area in the dark gray area on the northern lot would be rezoned to a rural exception zone to recognize that lot area. In the single cross hatching would recognize the lot area for the rural area on the severed lot on the southern portion. The area on the retained lot near the shoreline, which is SR3, is that area in the cross hatching is to apply that holding provision, as I mentioned. And then I would just like to draw your attention, the area that's zoned shoreline residential 3 on the larger retained lot is to remain. So that is currently zoned. And then the areas that are zoned environmental protection on the lots, recognize water courses and wetland areas, those are to remain. And on my next slide, we'll show the buffer areas from those EP areas. So, and the setbacks that would be associated with those. So this is just an image showing the provisionally approved lot configuration that the Township's Committee of Adjustment approved. Just like to draw your attention that the red area on the southern severed lot represents a developable area on the property, which was informed by both the zoning requirements as well as the environmental impact study that was submitted through the severance application. And the zoning amendment would again recognize those environmental protection areas and would not permit any development in those areas. As part of our Planning Act application, we did submit a full planning justification report summarizing the applicable planning documents. And we have concluded that this does represent good planning and is consistent in conformity with those documents. Again, the zoning bylaw amendment before committee this morning is as a condition of consent that was approved by the Township's Committee of Adjustment. The zoning of the property recognizes the resulting lot fabric, as well as to apply a holding provision to a portion of the severed lot to require holding provision and also to ensure site plan control is implemented at the time of the development. Our client doesn't have a final plan to at this time to develop those, but should development be proposed in the future, it would be required to comply with the zoning bylaw. And I would also note that the proposed lot fabric as part of the severance application, we did have a letter from a qualified septic installer to ensure that a septic could be accommodated on that severed lot, which was evaluated through the consent process. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions or comments, I do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the Township's planner, Brad Oster, have anything further to add to the materials and information presented by the applicant?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief in my comments as Mr. Pauk's covered the purpose and effect of the application already. As noted, this application is required as a condition of provisional consent for consent application B0223, which proposed the creation of one new residential lot from 3599 Severn River. The application is required to recognize the resulting lot areas of the severed and retained lands of the rural zone portion of those pieces, as well as to implement that requirement for site plan control on the SR3 zone portion of the severed lands. The site plan agreement is required to implement the recommendations and the mitigation measures of some of the environmental work that was done as part of the consent process to ensure no negative impacts. As explained within the staff report, township staff have no objections to that planning justification as presented by the applicants and are recommending that the bylaw be presented to council at the next available meeting for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oster. Any persons present in person on Zoom or telephone who have either questions or comments on the application will now be invited to speak. Township staff will call upon each registered participant. For those in remote attendance, unmute yourself when called upon and turn on your camera if you wish. All will be required to give your full name and address for the minutes. Please note that your comments will also be recorded and live streamed to the township's YouTube channel and will remain online. The township does not have the ability to edit the live stream to remove any personal information provided in the course submitting comments or questions. Brad, are there any members of the public registered to speak?
Thank you, Chair. There was no one registered for this application.
Thank you very much. If there are any members of the public who did not get called and would like to speak, unmute yourself now. Could the township's planner please summarize any additional correspondence that has been submitted on this application and or provide any further information?
Thank you, Chair. There was no additional correspondence received other than what was attached to the agenda for committee's consideration. But I would just point out that there is one member of the public in the chambers here if they do have any comments.
Yeah, no comment.
Thank you very much. If the applicant's agent wish to provide any further information on the application or in response to the correspondence?
Not at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Do members of the committee have any comments? Member Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair to the planner, just a question, the rezoning of the rural to rural exception, what's the benefit there? Like, as far as land use, what can you do with the new RU exemption?
Through the chair to committee member Taylor, my understanding of the zoning bylaw is that you the property owner would have to comply with the required zoning requirements for that portion of the zone. You'd have to use it in accordance with the permitted uses that are applied to that portion of the lot. My understanding is that it's intended for a shoreline residential use, so their intent would probably to be establish a dwelling near the shoreline in the portion zone SR3 exception.
Mr. Oster.
Thank you, Chair. I would just add to what Mr. Pauk said is that on the rural zone portion of these lands, the zoning bylaw would not permit any sort of development. In order for a lot to be developed or the portion zone rural to be developed, you have to have frontage on a publicly maintained road, which this lot does not. So only the SR3 zone portion of the lot is eligible for development.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, and just in summary, I support the application.
Thank you. Any other members have any comments? Questions? Seeing none? There are no further comments. I declare that the public information meeting on this proposal is closed. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Motion reads that the planning report P25-017 dated April 16, 2025 with respect to zoning bylaw amendment application Z2505 for the subject lands located at 3599 Severn River be received. And further that pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act, no further public notice or public meeting be required with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. And further that the draft zoning bylaw amendment included as attachment 5 to staff report P25-017 be presented to council for consideration in the next available meeting, subject to comments received prior to council's consideration of the zoning bylaw amendment, including additional submissions from the planning committee, members of the public, circulated agencies and township departments.
Moving a seconder, please. Moved by member Taylor, second by member McIntyre. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Pauk.
You.
To the consent agenda, does anyone want anything to speak to anything on it? Madam Clerk?
Okay, motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items as circulated.
Mover and a seconder, moved by member Brennan, second by member Taylor. All in favor? Carried. No reports from officials for direction. Any new business? May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
Meeting be adjourned at 11:03 a.m.
Member Minning, seconder, member McIntyre, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, committee, and thank you, staff.
Hey, Lori, right on, right?